I stood in my parents' backyard, my 18-year-old daughter Emma beside me, and felt the ground shift beneath my feet. The banner strung across the patio read, "Congratulations, Madison," in glittering letters. The three-tier cake on the table, decorated with pink roses, had frosting words that made my stomach drop. For our only granddaughter. Emma had graduated first in her class with a perfect 4.0 GPA and a full scholarship to Stanford. Madison, my niece, had just finished 8th grade. My parents, my sister Tracy, and her husband stood there smiling at us like this was normal, like they hadn't just erased my daughter from her own celebration. 3 weeks earlier, my mother had called me on a Tuesday evening while I was making dinner. Her voice had been warm, enthusiastic even, which should have been my first warning sign. My parents were not warm people, at least not with me. "Molly, I've been thinking," she said. "Emma's graduation is such a huge accomplishment. We'd love to throw her a party here at the house." Id paused, wooden spoon in hand, suspicion already creeping in. "Really? Of course. She's our granddaughter. Let us do this for her. You work so hard as a single mother. Let us handle everything." The single mother comment stung, as it always did. My ex-husband and I divorced when Emma was 3, after I caught him having an affair with his assistant. My parents blamed me for not trying harder to make the marriage work, said I'd given up too easily. That I'd embarrassed them in their social circle. Never mind that I'd been the one who cheated. Never mind that staying would have destroyed me. But Emma had been excited when I told her about the party offer. My daughter, brilliant and kind and so desperately hopeful that her grandparents would finally see her, had actually smiled in a way I hadn't seen in months. "Maybe they're finally realizing what Eve accomplished," Shed said, and the hope in her voice had broken something inside me. I should have trusted my instincts. I should have remembered every Christmas where Emma received a $50 gift card while Madison unwrapped a brand new laptop. I should have remembered Emma's 16th birthday that my parents forgot entirely, too busy planning Madison's elaborate 14th birthday party that same month. I should have remembered the piano recital where they'd left halfway through Emma's performance to attend Madison's soccer game, where Shed received a participation trophy for a team that hadn't won a single match. But I'd wanted to believe they could change. More than that, I'd wanted Emma to have what she deserved. Over the next 3 weeks, I'd confirmed details with my mother half a dozen times. The date, the time, Emma's favorite colors for decorations, her favorite cake flavor. My mother had sounded engaged, taking notes, asking questions about Emma's college plans. "We're so proud of her," Shed said during our last phone call. 2 days before the party, it actually felt tears in my eyes. "Thank you, Mom. This means everything to her." Now, standing in their backyard, I understood. They'd lied. Every word had been a lie. The yard was filled with about 30 people, mostly my parents' country club friends and Trace's in-laws. The decorations were pink and purple, Madison's favorite colors, not the blue Emma had specifically requested. A gift table sat near the patio, piled with presents wrapped in Madison's preferred style with big elaborate bows. The graduation announcements I'd sent my parents 2 months ago, professionally printed with Emma's photo and her list of academic honors, were nowhere to be seen. Instead, there were 8th grade completion certificates with Madison's name displayed on an easel. Tracy walked toward us, her heels clicking on the stone patio. She wore a designer sundress and her hair was professionally styled. She'd always been the pretty one, the successful one, the one who'd married wealth and given our parents the son-in-law they could brag about. "Oh," she said, her face arranged in fake sympathy. "I thought Mom told you we combined the parties to save money." But nothing about this party acknowledged Emma's existence. Not one single thing. Madison stood near the cake table wearing a tiara and a sash that said graduate in sparkly letters. She was 15, spoiled beyond measure, but I'd never blamed her for that. She was a child being raised by parents who gave her everything and grandparents who worshipped her. Emma's hand trembled in mine. "Mom," she whispered. "Can we just go?" Before I could answer, my father approached. He was a tall man, a retired insurance executive who'd spent his life projecting authority. His voice carried across the patio, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Well, Madison's achievement is more impressive considering her age. Emma just did what was expected of her." He paused, looking directly at me. "Besides, Tracy actually needs our support. You've always been so independent, Molly." Several guests shifted uncomfortably. A few exchanged glances, but no one said anything. That's when I understood. This wasn't thoughtlessness. This wasn't a miscommunication or a mistake. This was deliberate erasure. They'd planned this, discussed it, decided that my daughter, who'd worked herself to exhaustion for 4 years to graduate at the top of her class, who'd earned a full-ride scholarship to one of the best universities in the country, was less worthy of celebration than a child who'd simply completed the 8th grade. I took Emma's hand, ready to walk out with whatever dignity we had left, but my mother blocked our path, her perfectly manicured hand reaching out. "Don't be dramatic," she said. "There's plenty of cake for everyone." Something in her tone, that dismissive certainty that I would back down like I always did, made me stop. "This was supposed to be Emma's party," I said, keeping my voice level. My mother's smile tightened. "Emma will have plenty of opportunities. Madison needs this confidence boost. Her grades aren't great, you know." Tracy joined us, standing shoulder to shoulder with our mother. "You're always so selfish, Molly. Can't you let Madison have one day?" "Emma graduated as valedictorian," I said. "She has scholarship offers from 8 universities." My father waved his hand dismissively. "Book smarts aren't everything. Madison has personality. She's likable." The implication hung in the air. Emma wasn't likable. Emma was too intense, too focused, too much. Standing there, I suddenly saw the pattern I'd been making excuses for my entire daughter's life with perfect clarity. Emma's 16th birthday that they'd forgotten while throwing Madison an elaborate party the same month. The piano recital they'd left early, claiming they had another commitment, only for me to see their car at the sports complex where Madison was getting her participation trophy. Last Christmas, when Emma opened her gift card and tried to smile while Madison squealed over the laptop our parents had bought her. Every achievement Emma earned was minimized. Every mediocre moment of Madison's life was celebrated like she'd cured cancer. I'd made excuses. I'd told Emma that her grandparents were busy, that they loved her in their own way, that family was complicated. I'd tried to shield her from the truth because I'd wanted to believe my parents were capable of loving both their granddaughters equally. But they weren't, and they never would be. Other guests were leaving now, gathering their things and making quiet excuses. The tension was too thick, too uncomfortable. Tracy's husband Derek stood near the gift table, his face red with embarrassment. He caught my eye and mouthed, "I'm sorry." "Derek, stay out of this," Tracy snapped at him. Madison stood frozen by the cake, her tiara slightly crooked, looking confused and uncomfortable. For a brief moment, I felt sorry for her too. She was being used as a weapon in a war she hadn't chosen. Emma was crying silently now, tears streaming down her face. 18 years of rejection, of trying so hard to be good enough, of wondering why her achievements were never celebrated the way Madison's were. I could see it all in her expression. My mother made her fatal mistake. She looked at Emma, then at me, and said, "Maybe if you'd raised Emma to be less intense and more likable, we wouldn't have this problem." I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I didn't give them the dramatic scene they were probably expecting. Instead, I took out my phone and started taking pictures. The banner with Madison's name. The cake with its cruel message. The pink and purple decorations. The gift table with its pile of presents that were never meant for my daughter. The 8th grade completion certificates on display while Emma's actual high school graduation went unacknowledged. "What are you doing?" my father demanded. "Documenting," I said calmly. "For the family history." I took Emma's hand again. She was shaking, but she walked with me toward the gate. At the entrance, I turned back and said one sentence. "You'll hear from me in writing." My parents actually laughed. My mother shook her head like I was a child throwing a tantrum. Tracy called after us, "Good luck with that." They thought I was being overdramatic. They thought I'd calm down, apologize in a few days, and everything would go back to normal. Back to me accepting crumbs of affection and teaching Emma to be grateful for neglect. They had no idea what was coming. I had to pull over 3 blocks from my parents' house because Emma was sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. I parked on a quiet residential street, unbuckled my seatbelt, and held my daughter while she broke apart. "I knew," she gasped between sobs. "I always knew they didn't love me the same way, but I thought if I just worked hard enough, if I was good enough, if I accomplished enough, they'd finally be proud of me." My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. Baby, this isn't about you. This has never been about you. Then why? She looked at me with red, swollen eyes. What's wrong with me? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. What's wrong is them. We sat there for 20 minutes while Emma cried out years of accumulated pain. When she finally calmed down enough to drive, I took us home to our small 3-bedroom house in a modest neighborhood. It wasn't a mansion like Trace's. I didn't have a wealthy husband or a luxury car, but it was ours, and it was filled with love. That evening, after Emma went to bed exhausted from crying, I sat at my kitchen table and opened my laptop. I'm a technical writer by profession. Words are my tools, precision is my craft. If my parents wanted something in writing, I'd give them exactly that. I started drafting a letter, not from rage, though I was furious. Not from spite, though I'd earned the right to it. But from absolute clarity. I opened a document and titled it simply, "To my parents." Then I began listing every instance of favoritism I could remember, going back 18 years. The Christmas when 3-year-old Emma received a stuffed bear while Madison, just 1 year old, got a custom-built dollhouse. Emma's elementary school awards ceremonies that they'd missed because they were busy. Madison's birthday parties that got bigger and more elaborate each year while Emma's were forgotten or minimized. I documented the financial disparity. Roughly $15,000 more spent on Madison over the years, by my conservative estimate. Laptops, designer clothes, expensive summer camps. Emma got gift cards and practical items. I quoted their words back to them. Emma just did what was expected. Madison has personality. Maybe if you'd raised Emma to be less intense. The letter grew to 3 pages. Single, spaced. I didn't editorialize. I didn't call names. I simply stated facts, included dates when I remembered them, and let the pattern speak for itself. The final paragraph set my boundaries clearly. Until you can acknowledge this pattern of favoritism, apologize directly to Emma for 18 years of emotional neglect, and commit to family therapy, Emma and I are going no contact. We will not accept crumbs of affection or conditional love anymore. I saved the document and closed my laptop. It was nearly midnight. Tomorrow, I'd print 3 copies, one for each parent and one for Tracy, and send them certified mail. The next morning, my phone rang while I was making coffee. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. Molly? It's Derek, Trace's husband. I hadn't expected this. Derek. I need to apologize. His voice was tight with emotion. I didn't know the full extent of what they'd planned. Tracy told me it was going to be a combined party, equal celebration for both girls. When I got there and saw that banner, that cake, I was horrified. Does Tracy know you're calling me? No. She's furious at me for being upset about yesterday. She doesn't see what she did wrong. He paused. Molly, I've been watching this pattern for years. I've brought it up to Tracy before, and she always defends your parents. She says I'm imagining things. You're not. I know, and am disgusted with myself for not pushing harder. He took a breath. If you need me to testify to anything I've witnessed, I will. But there's something else you should know. My hand tightened on my coffee mug. What? Your parents have been telling extended family that you're difficult. That you keep Emma away from them. They've been rewriting history, making themselves look like the victims of your hostility. The room spun slightly. What? I've heard them. Molly, at family gatherings, to their friends. They say Emma's troubled, that you're overprotective, that they've tried so hard to be good grandparents but you won't let them. They've been running a smear campaign for years. I sat down hard on a kitchen chair. This explained so much. The distant cousins who'd stopped reaching out. The awkward conversations at the few family gatherings I'd attended. They'd been poisoning the well, ensuring that if I ever spoke up, I'd look like the unstable one. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because it's wrong. Because Madison is my daughter, and I don't want her growing up thinking this behavior is acceptable. Because Emma deserves better. His voice cracked, and because I'm ashamed I didn't speak up sooner. After I hung up with Derek, I sat staring at my phone. Then it buzzed with an email notification. The sender name made me freeze. Patricia Fitzgerald, my aunt, my father's older sister. I hadn't heard from Patricia in nearly 5 years. The subject line read, "We need to talk about yesterday." I opened it with trembling hands. Molly, I was at the party. I left right after you did. I need to tell you something about your parents that you should have known years ago. Can we meet? Tomorrow, if possible. This can't wait, Aunt Patricia. I typed back immediately. Coffee shop on Maple Street, 10 a.m. Her response came within minutes. I'll be there. I looked at the ceiling, taking a deep breath. Whatever was coming, whatever Patricia needed to tell me, I had allies. Derek's unexpected support, Patricia reaching out after years of silence. The truth was starting to surface. My parents thought they'd won. They thought they'd put me in my place, reminded me of the family hierarchy. They had no idea that their carefully constructed narrative was about to collapse. I walked into the coffee shop at 9:55 the next morning, my stomach churning with anxiety. Patricia was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee in front of her. She stood when she saw me, and I was struck by how much older she looked. She had to be in her early 70s now, my father's older sister by 6 years. Molly. She hugged me tightly. Thank you for meeting me. We sat down, and she pushed one of the coffees toward me. I got you a latte. I remembered you liked them. The kindness in that small gesture made my throat tight. I brought Emma, I said. She's waiting in the car. You said in your email this was something I should have known years ago. If it concerns her, she deserves to hear it. Patricia's eyes filled with tears. Yes. Please, bring her in. I went out to the parking lot where Emma sat with her phone, her eyes still swollen from yesterday's crying. Aunt Patricia wants to talk to both of us. Emma looked nervous, but she followed me inside. Patricia stood again when she saw Emma, and her face crumpled. Oh, sweet girl, she said. Come here. Emma hesitated, then let Patricia hug her. When they separated, Patricia gestured for us to sit. I need to start by apologizing to both of you, Patricia said. I distanced myself from this family 5 years ago because I couldn't stomach what I was seeing anymore. But I should have fought harder. I should have protected you, Emma. The way someone should have protected me. Protected you from what? I asked. Patricia took a sip of her coffee, gathering her thoughts. Your father and I grew up in the same kind of household you're experiencing now, Molly. Our parents played favorites constantly. Your father was the golden child. The boy. The one who'd carry on the family name. I was the disappointment. The girl who was too opinionated, too ambitious, too unwilling to just get married and have babies. I'd never known this. My grandparents had died before I was born. I worked 3 jobs to put myself through college, Patricia continued. Your father got a full ride, paid for by our parents, plus spending money, plus a car. When I asked for help with my tuition, they said I should focus on finding a husband instead of wasting money on education I wouldn't use. Emma leaned forward, listening intently. I became a real estate agent, Patricia said. I was good at it. Very good. Built my own business, made my own money, bought my own house, and do you know what our parents said? What? I whispered. That I was selfish, that I should have been helping my brother instead of focusing on myself. They wanted me to give him money, to support his family, because that's what family does. She laughed bitterly. Family. As if they'd ever treated me like family. What does this have to do with us? Emma asked quietly. Patricia reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. When your father started treating you the same way, Molly, favoring Tracy over you, I recognized the pattern. I tried to talk to him about it. He shut me down. Said I was projecting, so I started documenting. She opened the folder and spread papers across the table. Printed emails, family newsletters, Christmas card copies, spanning years. Every year, your grandparents send out a family newsletter, Patricia said, looking at Emma. To relatives, friends, their whole social circle. Look at these. I picked up a newsletter from 2 years ago. There was a half-page paragraph about Madison's science fair project, complete with photos. Emma was mentioned in one sentence. Molly's daughter continues to do well in school. Emma had won a state-level writing competition that year. She'd been published in a national teen literary magazine, but none of that was mentioned. Newsletter after newsletter, year after year. Madison's achievements, no matter how small, were detailed and celebrated. Emma's far more significant accomplishments were either minimized or completely omitted. The Christmas cards were worse, Patricia said, pulling out a stack. Look, the cards featured photos. Most years, it was just Madison, dressed beautifully, smiling at the camera. A few years included both girls, but Emma was always slightly out of frame or in the background. One year's card had Madison front and center with the caption, "Our pride and joy." Emma wasn't in that photo at all. "I kept these," Patricia said, "because I knew someday you'd need proof that you weren't imagining things." My hands were shaking as I looked through the evidence. Years of systematic erasure, documented and distributed to everyone they knew. Patricia pulled out her phone. "There's more. I'm part of a group text with several cousins and aunts. After yesterday's disaster, I sent them photos of everything I'd collected. The response was immediate. She showed us the thread, dozens of messages from relatives expressing shock, anger, disgust. Some shared their own stories of being mistreated by my parents. Others said they'd noticed the favoritism but didn't feel it was their place to intervene. "We want to do something," Patricia said. "A group of us. We want to throw Emma a real celebration, the party she deserves." Emma's eyes widened. "Really? Really? You earned that celebration, sweetheart. We want to honor that." Patricia looked at me. "If you'll let us." Before I could answer, my phone rang. My mother's name flashed on the screen. I looked at Patricia and Emma, then answered on speaker. "How dare you?" My mother's voice was shaking with rage. "How dare you air our private family business to the entire family?" "I haven't aired anything," I said calmly. "Someone sent me an email with all of Patricia's horrible messages. Years of private family correspondence, just spread around like gossip." Patricia smiled and mouthed, "That was me." "We know it was you, Molly," my mother continued. "You're trying to destroy this family. You're turning everyone against us." "I haven't sent anything to anyone," I said, which was technically true. "I hadn't sent the letter yet. This is because of yesterday, isn't it? You're punishing us for including Madison in a celebration." "You didn't include Madison," I said quietly. "You erased Emma." "That's not true. We love both girls equally." "Then why did the cake say for our only granddaughter?" Silence on the other end. "You'll receive my letter tomorrow," I said. "After you read it, we can discuss the truth. Until then, don't contact me or Emma." I hung up. My hand was steady. Patricia reached across the table and squeezed it. "The truth always finds a way out," she said. Emma looked at me, then at Patricia. For the first time since yesterday, she smiled. It was small, tentative, but real. "Let's plan a party," I said. I spent that night finishing my letter. By midnight, it was 3 pages of single, spaced documentation, precise and devastating. I didn't rely on emotion or hyperbole. I stated facts, quoted words, included dates. The pattern was undeniable. The final paragraph was clear. "Until you acknowledge this favoritism, apologize directly to Emma, and commit to family therapy, we are going no contact. We deserve better than conditional love." The next morning, I printed 3 copies. One for each parent, one for Tracy. I sent them certified mail, requiring signatures. They'd have proof I'd sent it. I'd have proof they'd received it. Then Patricia and I got to work planning Emma's real celebration. Day 1 after sending the letter was silent. No calls, no texts. I used the time productively. Patricia had secured a small event space at a community center. We sent invitations to Emma's friends, her favorite teachers, and the relatives who'd expressed support in that group text. Emma's best friend since kindergarten, Zoe, called and cried happy tears when Emma told her about the real party. Day 2 brought an unexpected call from Derek. "Tracy got the letter," he said. "She's spiraling." Spiraling how? She read it 3 times, then started calling everyone in the family trying to do damage control. "But people aren't listening to her anymore. They've seen Patricia's evidence." He paused. "Molly, Tracy didn't realize you documented everything. She thought it was just your word against theirs. It is my word. My word backed up by 18 years of facts. She's starting to understand that." His voice dropped. "I told her I'm taking Madison to therapy, that this whole dynamic is affecting our daughter, and I won't let it continue." "How did she react?" "She's furious at me too now, but I don't care." Madison came home from that party confused and upset. She asked me why her grandparents said she was their only granddaughter when Emma exists. "She's 15, Molly. She's old enough to see that something's wrong." After I hung up, I felt a strange sense of calm. The truth was spreading like ripples in water, reaching people I hadn't even contacted directly. Day 3, the explosion came. I woke up to 23 text messages, all from my parents' number. I made coffee before reading them. How could you do this to us? We're devastated. After everything we've done for you, you're tearing this family apart. Tracy is a mess. You've always been ungrateful. We don't deserve this treatment. The messages went on, a spiral of self-pity and deflection. Not one word of acknowledgement, not one apology. Then messages started coming from other relatives. My cousin Linda. I'm with you. I remember when they forgot Emma's birthday. My Uncle George. Your father pulled the same thing with Patricia. Some people never change. The family was fracturing, but not the way my parents had predicted. Instead of everyone turning against me, people were finally speaking up about things they'd witnessed for years. At noon, my father called. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. This ends now, he said without preamble. His voice was hard, threatening. You will retract that letter. You will apologize to your mother and sister. You will stop spreading lies about this family. They're not lies. If you don't fix this, there will be consequences. What consequences? I asked calmly. Well, contest Emma's graduation honors. You can't do that. They're academic achievements certified by her school. Well, tell everyone she's mentally unstable. That's libel, and you know it. We'll cut you out of our will. I actually laughed. Dad, I've never expected anything from you. You've made it clear for 38 years that I'm the disappointment. Your will means nothing to me. His voice got louder. We gave you life. You owe us respect. You gave me life. I said, my voice ice cold. I gave Emma love. We're not the same. I hung up on him. My hands were shaking. But not from fear. From adrenaline. From the power of finally standing my ground. An hour later, someone knocked on my front door. I looked through the peephole and froze. Madison stood there alone, her car parked in my driveway. I opened the door. Madison? Does your mom know you're here? No. She looked upset, tears on her face. Aunt Molly, I need to know the truth. Mom is saying you're lying about everything, but Grandma and Grandpa are acting really weird, and Dad is barely speaking to Mom. What's happening? I invited her in. Emma heard voices and came downstairs, stopping when she saw her cousin. The two girls looked at each other. They'd never been close. How could they be, with the wedge our parents had driven between them? I'm sorry, Madison said suddenly, looking at Emma. About the party. I didn't know it was supposed to be for you. They told me it was for both of us. But then when you left, Grandma said it was always meant to be just mine. I felt sick. Emma's expression softened slightly. It's not your fault. But it is, kind of. Madison wiped her eyes. They compare me to you all the time, Emma. They tell me I need to be more like you, work harder like you, be smarter like you. But then they act like you don't exist. It's so confusing. And honestly, she took a shaky breath. I think you're amazing. I always have. Emma stood frozen, processing this. I watched my daughter's face carefully. I never knew they compared you to me, Emma said softly. All the time. And I know I'm not as smart as you. I know my grades are bad. But they make such a big deal out of every little thing I do because they don't want me to feel bad about not being like you. Madison looked at me. Aunt Molly, what did you write in that letter? Dad said it was the truth, but he won't show it to me. I made a decision. Madison was 15, old enough to understand. I printed a copy of the letter and handed it to her. She read it slowly, her face going pale. When she finished, she looked at Emma with tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I didn't know. I mean, I knew they treated us differently, but I didn't understand it was like this. For your whole life. Emma moved forward and, to my surprise, hugged her cousin. Both girls cried. And I realized they were both victims of our parents' dysfunction in different ways. Madison had been used as a weapon. Emma had been treated as invisible. Neither had asked for it. When they separated, Madison looked at me with determination. I want to come to Emma's real party. And I want to tell Grandma and Grandpa that what they did was wrong. Madison, you don't have to do that, I said gently. Yes, I do. Because if I don't, I'm just as bad as they are. The weekend of Emma's real celebration arrived. Patricia had transformed the community center event space into something beautiful. Blue and silver decorations, Emma's actual favorite colors, hung from the ceiling. A banner read, "Congratulations, Emma, Stanford Class of 2029. The cake was elegant, 3 tiers with delicate blue flowers, and the top said simply, "You did it, Emma." 45 people came. Emma's friends from school, teachers who'd believed in her, Patricia and the relatives who'd rallied around us. Derek brought Madison, though Tracy had refused to attend. Neighbors who'd watched Emma grow up came with cards and small gifts. The space filled with warmth and genuine celebration. Emma's best friend Zoe gave a speech about Emma's kindness, how she'd tutored students for free, how she'd started a reading program at the elementary school, how she'd balanced academic excellence with being a truly good person. Patricia presented Emma with a scrapbook she'd made, thick with photos and documentation of every achievement our parents had ignored. State writing competition awards, honor roll certificates, volunteer hours, leadership positions. Everything that should have been celebrated, but wasn't. Emma cried happy tears as she flipped through it. "This is incredible," she whispered. When it was my turn to speak, I stood up with my heart full. I looked at my daughter, surrounded by people who genuinely loved her, and felt overwhelming gratitude. "I'm not going to trash talk anyone today," I began. "This day is about celebrating Emma, not dwelling on pain. But I do want to talk about what I've learned." I looked at Emma. "My daughter taught me about resilience, about keeping your heart soft even when the world treats you harshly, about working for excellence not for approval, but because you know your own worth." My voice cracked. "Emma, you could have become bitter. You could have given up. Instead, you became extraordinary, not despite the lack of support, but because you found your strength within yourself." Emma was crying again, but smiling too. "I also learned that family isn't just blood," I continued. "It's the people who choose you back. It's Aunt Patricia, who fought for truth. It's Derek, who stood up when it was hard. It's Madison, who had the courage to question what she'd been taught." I looked around the room. It's every single person in this room who came here to celebrate a young woman's genuine achievements. "Love isn't about keeping peace," I said. "It's about protecting worth. And Emma, your worth has never been in question. Their inability to see it was their failure, not yours." The room was silent except for the sound of people crying softly. Then Mrs. Harrison, Emma's English teacher, stood up. "I have something to share," she said. "Emma, I nominated you for the National Merit Achievement Scholarship 2 months ago. I just found out last week that you won." Emma's head snapped up. "What? $10,000? Mrs. Harrison said, smiling. "Added to your Stanford scholarship, you're completely covered financially." The room erupted in applause. Emma stood there in shock, then started laughing and crying at the same time. Zoe rushed to hug her, and soon Emma was surrounded by friends celebrating this unexpected gift. I watched my daughter, genuinely happy for the first time in days, and felt peace settle over me. Then the door to the event space opened. My parents walked in. The room went quiet. Patricia had hired security, a retired police officer friend, specifically in case they tried this. He moved toward them, but I held up my hand. "It's okay," I said quietly. My parents looked smaller somehow, less commanding. My mother held a large wrapped gift. They looked around at the decorations, the happy faces, the genuine celebration, and something flickered in my father's expression. "We're her grandparents," my father said to the security guard. "We have a right to be here." I walked to the entrance. Up close, I could see my mother had been crying. Her makeup was smudged, her eyes red. "Did you read my letter?" I asked. My father's jaw tightened. "We read it. And you exaggerated everything. So you're not here to apologize," I said. "You're here to save face because you know everyone's talking." My mother thrust the gift toward me. "We bought this for Emma. We want to make things right." I didn't take it, then say it to her. Apologize to her specifically for the party, for the cake that called Madison your only granddaughter, for 18 years of making her feel invisible. Silence stretched between us. Behind me, I could feel the room watching, waiting. "We won't be manipulated into some public apology," my father finally said. "Then we have nothing to discuss." I started to turn away. "Emma!" my mother called out. "Sweetheart, please." I froze, but I didn't stop my daughter when she walked up behind me. Emma had heard everything. Shed watched this entire exchange. Emma looked at her grandparents, and when she spoke, her voice was steady and clear. "I used to think something was wrong with me," she said. "I worked so hard to make you proud. I got perfect grades, won awards, tried to be exactly what you wanted. But my therapist helped me understand that your love was always conditional, and I could never meet those conditions because they kept changing." My mother reached for Emma's hand. Emma stepped back. "I'm going to Stanford," Emma continued. "I have a full scholarship. I have people here who actually celebrate me. I don't need your gift. I need you to admit the truth. To yourselves, if not to me. Until you can do that, please don't contact me." Emma turned and walked back into the party, her head high. I looked at my parents one more time, then followed my daughter. The door closed behind us. Through the window, I could see my parents standing there, the rejected gift still in my mother's hands. Inside, Emma was shaking but strong. Her friends surrounded her with support. Patricia hugged her tight. Madison approached and said quietly, "That was the bravest thing I've ever seen." The party continued, even more joyful because Emma had stood up for herself. She'd drawn her own boundary, found her own voice. She didn't need me to fight this battle for her anymore. I watched my daughter laugh with her friends, blow out candles on a cake that actually celebrated her, open gifts from people who genuinely cared, and I realized Emma wasn't just going to be okay. She was going to be extraordinary. She already was. 2 weeks after the party, an envelope arrived in my mailbox. The return address was my parents' house. The handwriting was my mother's. I sat at my kitchen table and opened it carefully. Inside was a letter, 4 pages, handwritten on my mother's cream-colored stationery. "Dear Molly and Emma," it began. I read it slowly, twice, before calling Emma downstairs. My mother's letter was imperfect, filled with justifications and explanations, but buried within the defensive paragraphs was something I hadn't expected. Acknowledgement. She admitted they'd shown favoritism. She tried to explain it away, saying Trace's life looked picture perfect but was actually struggling, that Madison needed more support because she wasn't naturally gifted like Emma, that they'd thought Emma was fine because she succeeded despite their neglect. The logic was flawed, the excuses were weak, but the admission was there. "We were wrong," she wrote in the 3rd page. "We told ourselves we were being fair, that we were helping where help was needed most. But we hurt Emma, and we hurt you. We made Emma feel invisible when she should have felt celebrated." The 4th page included a separate letter addressed to Emma specifically. My mother apologized for the party, for the cake, for years of minimizing her achievements. She asked if they could start family therapy together. At the bottom, my father had added a note in his rigid handwriting. "I was wrong. I'm sorry." 4 words. Not enough. But more than Eid expected from a man who'd never apologized for anything in his life. I handed both letters to Emma. She read them in silence, tears sliding down her cheeks. "What do you think?" I asked gently. "I think they still don't fully understand what they did," Emma said. "But I think they're starting to. Maybe." She looked at me. "I want to give them a chance, but slowly, and only with therapy. Whatever you decide, I support you." "1 session," Emma said. "Before I leave for Stanford." "Well, see what happens." I scheduled a family therapy session for 3 weeks later, giving everyone time to prepare. Dr. Chen, the therapist, insisted on meeting with each party separately before the joint session. During that time, other pieces of the family puzzle shifted into new positions. Derek called to tell me he and Tracy were in marriage counseling. Tracy had finally acknowledged her role in the favoritism, though she was struggling with it. Shed sent Emma a letter too, apologizing and admitting Shed felt threatened by Emma's achievements, that Shed used their parents' favoritism to boost Madison because she was insecure about her daughter's struggles in school. Madison and Emma started texting occasionally, building an actual relationship free from the competition our parents had created. Tracy asked if we could meet for coffee, just the 2 sisters. I agreed to think about it. 1 month after the party, we gathered in Dr. Chen's office for our family therapy session. My parents sat on one couch, Emma and I on another. Dr. Chen, a calm woman in her 50s, sat between us. The session was tense but productive. Dr. Chen didn't let anyone hide behind excuses. Patricia told me something that helped me understand, my father said at one point. She reminded me that our parents did the same thing to us. They favored me over her. I never questioned it. I just accepted it as normal. That doesn't excuse it, Dr. Chen said gently. No, my father agreed. It doesn't. But it explains where I learned that love could be conditional, that some children were worth more investment than others. My mother talked about her own childhood, growing up with a sister who was beautiful while she was plain, smart while she was average, how Shed internalized the message that life wasn't fair and some people just got less. I passed that poison on, she said, looking at Emma. I told myself I was being practical, but I was really just repeating what was done to me. Emma spoke about how it felt to be invisible in her own family, to work herself to exhaustion, hoping for recognition that never came, to watch her cousin get celebrated for mediocrity while her achievements were dismissed. The party wasn't the worst part, Emma said. The worst part was realizing you'd planned it. You'd discussed it, decided I wasn't worth celebrating, and then lied to my mom about it. That was when I understood it wasn't accidental neglect, it was intentional erasure. My mother sobbed. My father looked at the floor. By the end of the 90-minute session, there was no miracle reconciliation. But there was a foundation, fragile and uncertain, for potential healing. This will take time, Dr. Chen said. Years, probably. Trust isn't rebuilt in one conversation. My parents agreed to continued therapy, both together and individually. They asked if they could video chat with Emma once a week while she was at Stanford, with the understanding that Emma could end the calls anytime she felt uncomfortable. Emma agreed to try. 3 weeks later, I drove Emma across the country to Stanford. We made it a road trip, just the two of us, talking about everything and nothing. We stopped at roadside attractions, ate at diners, stayed in budget motels. It was perfect. When we arrived at Stanford's campus, Emma's eyes lit up. The university was beautiful, sprawling, filled with students who looked brilliant and eager. Emma's roommate, a girl named Jasmine from Seattle, was warm and funny. They clicked immediately. As I helped Emma unpack her things in the tiny dorm room, she suddenly hugged me tight. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For fighting for me. I know that wasn't easy." "You're worth fighting for," I said. "You've always been worth it." When it was time for me to leave, Emma walked me to my car. The California sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. "I'm going to be happy here," Emma said. "Really happy." "I know you are. Not because they finally apologized, or because we're doing therapy. Because I finally understand that their inability to love me right was never about my worth." She smiled. "I learned that from you." I cried the whole first hour of the drive home, but they were good tears, tears of relief, of pride, of hope. Over the next 6 months, slow progress happened. My parents came to visit Emma at Stanford once, bringing appropriate gifts and genuine interest in her classes. They asked questions about her research project, her professors, her friends. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Tracy and I met for coffee monthly. Our relationship was cautious, complicated but growing. She was working hard in therapy to understand her own insecurities and how Shed weaponized our parents' favoritism. Madison was thriving with therapy and Derek's more active parenting. Shed discovered a talent for art and was taking classes at a community college program for high school students. Emma sent me photos regularly. Emma at a Stanford football game, face painted cardinal red. Emma in the library, surrounded by books, looking stressed but exhilarated. Emma at a beach trip with new friends, genuinely smiling. My favorite photo came 6 months after Shed left for school. It was Emma at a campus event, surrounded by a diverse group of friends, all laughing. The caption read, "Found my people." I sat in Emma's childhood bedroom, looking at that photo, and thought about the devastating party that had started this journey. How Eid wanted to yell, to scream, to make a scene. How Eid chosen instead to document, to set boundaries, to speak truth clearly and firmly. The letter Eid written wasn't revenge, it was clarity. The celebration we'd thrown wasn't spite, it was love. Walking away from my parents wasn't weakness, it was strength. Id taught Emma the most important lesson I knew. Your worth isn't determined by people who refuse to see it. You don't need validation from people who've spent your whole life trying to minimize you. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no more until real change happens. Emma learned she didn't need her grandparents' approval to be extraordinary. She already was extraordinary, with or without their recognition. Their inability to see it was their loss, not her failure. I learned that breaking generational cycles is painful but necessary. My parents had learned dysfunction from their parents, and they'd passed it on. But I'd chosen to stop that cycle, to love my daughter without conditions, to celebrate her genuinely, to fight for her worth even when it meant standing alone. Patricia had shown me that chosen family, people who truly see and value you, can be more powerful than blood ties. Derek had demonstrated that speaking up, even when it's uncomfortable, is an act of integrity. Madison had proven that even children raised in dysfunction can choose differently when they're given the truth. The healing wasn't complete. Maybe it never would be. My parents were trying, genuinely trying, but decades of behavioral patterns don't disappear overnight. There were still awkward moments, still times when old dynamics tried to resurface, but now we had therapy, boundaries, and most importantly, truth. Tracy and I would probably never be as close as sisters could be. Too much damage had been done, too many years of competition and resentment, but we were building something new, something more honest, even if it was smaller and more fragile than a typical sisterhood. And Emma? Emma was thriving, not just surviving but genuinely flourishing. She'd found her place, her people, her purpose. She video chatted with her grandparents weekly, but she didn't need them the way she once had. Their approval was no longer essential to her happiness. That was the real victory. Not that they'd finally apologized or that we were attempting reconciliation, but that Emma had found her own worth, independent of their recognition. I thought about that cake, the one that said, "For our only granddaughter," and how it had been the catalyst for everything that followed. Sometimes cruelty reveals truth that politeness keeps hidden. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the most necessary changes. My parents had tried to erase my daughter at her own graduation party. They'd failed. Because Emma was unerasable. Her light, her brilliance, her essential worth couldn't be diminished by anyone's blindness. She'd been extraordinary all along. They'd just been looking the wrong way. Now, sitting in her empty childhood bedroom, looking at photos of her new life, I felt at peace. I'd done what a mother should do. Protected my child, taught her to value herself, and showed her that love without conditions was not just possible but essential. Emma would carry that lesson forward into her own life, her own relationships, her own potential future family. The cycle was broken. The pattern had ended. And that, I realized, was the deepest form of love I could offer. Not just protecting her from harm, but teaching her to protect herself. Not just fighting her battles, but showing her how to fight her own with dignity and strength. Emma had learned to say, "I deserve better," and to mean it. She'd learned that walking away from people who diminish you isn't giving up, it's choosing yourself. She'd learned that family should celebrate your victories, not minimize them to make others feel better. These were lessons that would serve her for a lifetime. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. "Just aced my midterm. Professor said it was one of the best essays she's read in years. Thought you'd want to know. Love you, Mom." I smiled, typing back, "Of course you did. So proud of you. Love you more." Then I stood up, took one last look around her room, and went downstairs to start dinner. Life moved forward. Healing continued. And somewhere in California, my daughter was writing her own story. One where she was the celebrated heroine, not the erased footnote. That was all I'd ever wanted for her. Before I end, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who refuse to acknowledge how they hurt you? How did you find the courage to stand up for yourself or someone you loved? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else who's struggling with a similar situation. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength in difficult family dynamics. Share this with someone who needs to hear that their worth isn't determined by people who refuse to see it. Thank you for listening to Emma and My Journey. I hope it reminds you that you deserve to be celebrated, that your achievements matter, and that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. May you always find the courage to fight for your worth, and the wisdom to walk away from people who ask you to accept less than you deserve.